Personally, as the director of Amani Africa Media and Research Services, a policy research organization that is dedicated to work fully on matters African Union and multilateral policy processes of concern and interest for Africa, we are grateful to partner with ECOSOC in the convening of this symposium today. I would like to therefore thank not just ECOSOC but also the other partners who have worked with us for this important platform, and my colleagues at Amani Africa and all our partners that support the work of Amani Africa and ECOSOC. I have a few points that I would like to make with respect to the theme of the year, and I will stop. The first point that I would like to make relates to the work that we do at Amani Africa. As part of our coverage of the African Union and its work, we are engaged in the production of information and analysis in and media work. Amani Africa's podcast on the Pan-Africanists, insightful, edifying conversation of Open Society Foundations that sought to provide background to and highlight the significance of the theme of the year, and importantly, to clarify what this theme of the year is and is not about. For example, the theme of the year is not about transitional justice that is carried out within countries. The African Union already has a transitional justice policy that tries to cater for wrongs that have been perpetrated within states in the context of authoritarian oppression or violent conflicts. It is therefore dealt with. This one is about the historical experience of Africans and people of African descent as a result of the transatlantic enslavement of African human beings. Note that I didn't say slave trade, because saying slave trade suggests that those people are actually slaves. No, they are human beings. So it is an enslavement of human beings that happened. Africa's experience and the impact that Africans and people of African descent continue to endure as a result of colonialism and that of apartheid. It is about that. And therefore, rightly, this is in some ways about memory of those whose life was destroyed, those whose culture and identity and dignity was denigrated, and whose humanity was denied. It is about memory. In Things Fall Apart, Chinua Achebe captures this experience. The mechanical trauma of colonial conquest and Things Fall Apart is depicted in view of the alteration introduced by the arrival of the European missionaries and administrators in Umuofia. Chinua Achebe narrates the psychological and social suffering the community underwent as colonial Christian traditions disrupt the distinguished religious and social tenets of the community. Noe, the son of Okoko, is a perfect example of individual trauma because he struggles with the culturally conflicted values of his society and the new religious teaching. So indeed, it is about that memory. But memory is not just about the past. Memory, as we all know, including from the best examples of the liberal tradition, is about human dignity, is about affirming the humanness and the words of those who have been affected. That is why it is so important that we indeed join others in actually remembering the tragedies that happened during World War I, World War II, the tragedies that happened during the Holocaust, the tragedy that happened during 1994. We wouldn't say that, no, that happened a long time ago, and therefore we have to forget about that. Why? Because those who forget are cursed to repeat the mistakes of the past. But while memory of those whose life and humanity was crushed under the weight of slavery, colonial rule, and apartheid is important on and of itself, this theme of the year is not about just that past experience and the memory of those who perished through that experience. As Brian reminded us in Amani Africa's podcast, The Pan-Africanist, the struggle, I quote, the struggle for reparation is not just a nostalgic reflection on the pain of our ancestors. It is a reflection also on the reality of our underdevelopment, end of quote. And you all agree that one of the profound challenges of this moment is inequality. Inequality within nations, inequality between nations. And one of the most pervasive axes of inequality is race and racism. And it's really important to remember that these axis of inequality, that is race and racism, is a result of these experiences and these realities that we face today. And therefore, I wish to once again refer to the importance of this, not just for Africa and people of African descent, but for humanity as a whole. Because affirming the dignity and the equal worth of each and every one of us is, after all, the promise and what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights proclaims to be the standard, right? And this theme is exactly about that. This theme is about trying to bridge the divide between the reality of Africans and people of African descent and the promise of the international human rights system that affirms the equal worth and dignity of every human being. It is about bridging that gap. So I quote the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres. He says, I quote, if the purpose of the Charter, that is the United Nations Charter, are to be achieved, redressing the pervasive historical imbalances that characterize the international system, from the legacies of colonialism and slavery to the deeply unjust global financial architecture and anachronistic peace and security structure of today, must be a priority. Must be a priority. End of quote. So this theme of the year is therefore about us trying to live up to the values and standards enshrined in the UN Charter and all other international human rights instruments. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I would like to invite all of us, therefore, to join in this important struggle and in this important conversation that we are having. reparations, justice through reparations for people of African descent and Africans is a responsibility of all of us, Africans and others in the international system, who believe in and have the conviction for the realization of equal dignity and worth of everyone, irrespective of their race. And it's important to also recognize the diversity that exists within that axis of inequality that is race. That is why I pay tribute to my sisters who spoke before me for bringing the voice of the African girl and African women. Thank you so much. And thank you for your kind attention.